Okay, so I've allowed this a little bit of time to set up and dry. If you notice the glue's still wet, you can see it there in that seam. Not quite on video, so I'm going to turn it just to make sure we see that. So that is still wet, so I've got to be careful working on this as I move along. So I've done that wiggle trick, made sure it's stuck on there. So I want to look at this from all angles. I'm going to be very gentle about turning it and moving it. Now I have one of these guys left to put on there. So I want to think design-wise, like where would it look interesting? So far I've kept these all turned this way. So if I turn it a different way, that could be a little more interesting. So I want to decide, would I put it here? Would I put it there? And I think it definitely needs one on this side. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and join on that piece. Now this is standing up, but adding on another piece, I have to be very careful that I'm not too rough with it, because obviously that would make the next one fall off, and that is not a goal that I want to set for myself. I want it to stay on there. That would be the goal. So I'm adding glue to this piece, and again, not too much, more than I would for paper, but I don't see glue dripping off of this as I'm holding up. I'm going to fold this tab down so it'll let that touch it more securely on this side. Something that's helped my sculpture stand up a lot as I've worked on it, and something we kind of learned from our last artist we were looking at, Anne Melanie. I've really thought about right angles, so this forms a right angle. When I put some of these other pieces on, I tried to think about forming right angles as well. Some of them are perfect 90-degree right angles. Some of them aren't quite right angles because they're not all the way at 90 degrees. But a 90-degree angle seems to go together and hold things together stronger than an obtuse or an acute angle. So I'm going to continue looking at this and deciding, because I have some more cardboard that I might want to join on. And I can decide maybe I'm not going to use all my pieces of cardboard. Maybe I'm going to cut these into smaller pieces. Another idea I could think about is adding relief parts to my sculpture. So far, everything that I've put on there has been a piece that adds to the size and shape of the overall design. But maybe now I want to think about adding texture to the surface. So by gluing this piece on here, it doesn't stick off from the sculpture and create another form, but it does look more interesting on the surface to have something that creates a texture on there. Even if I paint this one color, I would see that later because the paint would go over and around it. So I kind of like the way that looks. I'm going to think about adding another shape, and this is called creating a relief surface. So relief surface means you have this surface to it, but parts of it are lower and parts of it that stick out, that would be higher. So I have a surface that has high relief and low relief, and I really like how that's looking. So I think I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to add this piece here, but I can see wet glue, so I've got to be very careful as I join this on, not to be too aggressive with it, so it will actually go on there and stay. All right, so I sort of slid that. I'm going to wiggle it into place, holding the other piece so it does not snap off. And I like the way that is starting to look, but I just realized you can't see it on the camera that well, so I'm going to slide it over. So I'm going to continue adding other parts to this. Once the clothespin has been on there long enough, then sometimes I can take it off. It's really hard to visualize, well, how does it looking when that clothespin is added on there? I definitely like these high relief parts that I've added on, so as I turn this around, that's something that I notice as the artist and designer. It needs some of those high relief areas on here. So maybe something in this part and maybe something in this part. So I'm going to keep working on mine. You guys are going to keep working on yours, and I look forward to seeing what you send me.